Okay, great. I'm going to get started and thank you all for coming. Scano, Surnini Gausen, Gaigo Hono Neo Kwanzo Den, Otiunimike Shout Den. So, hi, my name is Serena Mondi Sabo. I'm Hugo Wolf Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, and I am the Just Transition Lead at Sacred Earth Solar. I am also a contributor to the Just Transition Guide. I just want to say good morning, good afternoon, and I would like to welcome everyone into this space today and send peace to all of you who are here. I am incredibly honored today to announce the launch of the Just Transition Guide, Indigenous-led pathways towards equitable climate solutions and resiliency in the climate crisis. The Just Transition Guide is an 180-page resource to inspire and support communities and workers from government to the front lines to take actions toward building a healthier planet for all human and non-human kin. The Just Transition Guide was developed through a partnership between Sacred Earth Solar, Indigenous Climate Action, David Suzuki Foundation, and Power to the People in Real World Media. This work is a product of 6 years of research that started with Melina Laboucan-Massimo's master's thesis and furthered with her DSF fellowship and the filming of the television series Power to the People that went to 26 locations across the country to visit those leading the transition. We are excited to share with you all the stories and solutions of Indigenous communities leading the way on renewable energy, eco-housing, and food security. Our Just Transition Guide explores the energy and electricity landscape, different types of energy, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and solutions beyond clean energy, such as eco-housing, food security initiatives, and cultural revitalization. It also details how to implement your own climate solutions and implores key lessons and policy recommendations from a solutions-based approach from communities already doing the work on the ground. Right now, there's an urgency and necessity for Indigenous-led climate solutions grounded in self-determination, healing, and community, as the ones being put forth by our federal government do not encapsulate the reality of those on the front lines of change and impact like our guide does. Bill C-50, known as the Canadian Sustainable Jobs Act, has just passed through a second reading in committee on October 23rd. In its current form, the act lacks urgent policy we need to implement in order to address the climate crisis and ensure communities and workers are prepared and resilient in the face of rapidly escalating climate impacts. In the Just Transition Guide, there will be many renewable energy solutions introduced. We are by no means dangling renewable energy as the ultimate solution to the entrenched inequalities endured by Indigenous communities from coast to coast. Nor are we suggesting that all communities have access to necessary resources to initiate their climate solutions. Instead, we use the Just Transition Guide to provide a sense of a different path forward, one where there are alternatives to fossil fuels and extraction, and one where Indigenous sovereignty and leadership is not only recognized, but honored. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you all our 3 speakers from our partnering organizations, as well as our community speaker whose community and projects are featured throughout the guide, as well as Power to the People. Our first speaker will be Melina Laboucan-Massimo. Melina Laboucan-Massimo is Lubicon Cree from Northern Alberta. Melina is the founder of Sacred Earth Solar and the co-founder of Indigenous Climate Action. Melina is also the inaugural fellow at the David Suzuki Foundation, where her research focused on climate change, Indigenous knowledge, and renewable energy. She is the host of the TV docuseries Power to the People, which profiles renewable energy in Indigenous communities across the country. Melina holds a master's degree in Indigenous governance at the University of Victoria, with a focus on renewable energy. As part of her master's thesis, Melina implemented a 20.8 kilowatt solar project in her home community of Little Buffalo, which powers the health center in the heart of the tar sands. Next, we have Jayce Chiblow. Jayce Chiblow is Anishinaabe from Garden River First Nation, Ontario. Jayce is the Education and Training Manager at Indigenous Climate Action. She has a Bachelor's of Science degree in biology and a Master's of Environmental Studies. Jayce's master's research was conducted in her community, where she brought together youth, community leaders, and knowledge keepers in a workshop-style gathering focused on climate action through an Indigenous food sovereignty lens. Now I will introduce Severin Cullis Suzuki. Severin Cullis Suzuki is an activist for diversity in the natural world and in human society. Severin is the current executive director of the David Suzuki Foundation. From a young age, she has spoken widely about intergenerational justice, the needs for ethics in our economics, and respect and recognition of Indigenous rights and title. Rooted in the West Coast of Canada, she is part of the global movement to shift our human path forward towards sustainability and survival. Our last speaker will be former Chief Patrick Michel. Patrick Michel of the Indigenous Nation and a member of the Kanaka Bar Indian Band has resided in BC's Fraser Canyon all of his life. As early as the mid-80s, ecosystem changes were observed in Kanaka's traditional territory, and members continue to report observed adverse changes, increasing year after year. After the 1992 Rio Conference, Patrick and Kanaka Bar residents agreed that the world's air, land, and waters were heating up at an unprecedented rate, which was the cause of site-specific localized changes. With awareness of the risk caused by a warming Earth, Kanaka Bar worked together to formally assess the strengths and the weaknesses of their natural and built assets and renovated and retrofitted what and where they could with available resources in hand. And all new builds came with a requirement to be ready for the environment of tomorrow. The community of Kanaka Bar weathered 2021's unprecedented heat, drought, and wildfires, followed by the November atmospheric river, and then record cold and snow load in December. Unfortunately, the community of Kanaka lost their hometown when Lytton burned to the ground, along with retired Chief Patrick's family home. I'd also like to introduce Julius Lindsay from the David Suzuki Foundation, who will be available for Q&A at the end. Julius is the Director of Sustainable Communities at David Suzuki Foundation. He leads the foundation's work and to accelerate and raise the ambition of climate action in cities across the place now known as Canada. He is also a co-founder of the Black Environmentalist Alliance, an organization that seeks to champion Black people in the environmental profession, provide a safe space for peer-to-peer engagement to have real conversations and share experiences, and to advocate for environmental justice for Black Canadians now and in the future. I'd like to make note that we will have speakers as well as videos, and after that, we will have space for Q&A, and our tech team will monitor your questions that you will be able to ask in our chat. Now, I'd like to invite the speakers to share. First, we'll have Melina.
Hi. Thank you, Serena. And thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Melina Laboucan-Massimo. I am Laboucan Cree from Little Buffalo, Alberta. I'm so excited today to launch the Just Transition Guide and share the stories of Indigenous communities who are leading the energy transition already in this country. We're grateful for the time they took to share with us, and this guide contains valuable success stories, real-life examples, and important technical information, which together outlines the ways in which communities can move forward towards a just transition. The climate solutions here also support the revitalization of Indigenous cultures and languages. And as we know, Indigenous knowledge and science creates community resilience in the face of the climate crisis. This guide is an offering and a resource for Indigenous peoples and all across the country who are looking for ways forward in the path towards implementing an equitable transition. The lessons of the guide highlights the notable gaps that currently exist in the federal government's current approach to just transition, including Bill C-50, the Sustainable Jobs Act, which just passed its second reading in Parliament in October 2023. While our whole world transitions from renewable energy from fossil fuels, it is essential that we are critical and we are aware of the impacts still of clean energy, so we do not replicate the same systems of harm that have been perpetuated from the previous energy era. My just transition journey started in 2011 when I was already working full-time as a climate energy campaigner. My community experienced at the time one of the largest oil spills in Alberta's history and one of the largest in Canada's history. 4.5 million liters of crude oil spilled across our traditional territory. The effects were disastrous, and I still remember my family struggling to breathe with intense nausea and burning eyes. And as I watched my family and community members get sick, a harsh reality dawned on me. Even though I was already working on full-time on climate issues, I was forced to watch a harmful extractive industry poison my family and my community. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. I needed then, so I decided then to start working on solutions and find the yes to the no. And, really at the time there was some talk around just transition, but I didn't know anyone that was implementing it. So in 2013, I decided to return to to finish my master's degree and with a research focus on energy transition and governance. By 2015, I had finally completed my first successful grid-connected solar project in my home community of Little Buffalo, which powers our health center. And then I launched Sacred Earth Solar. But what I realized in all of this, that there was no how-to guide. I had to teach myself through trial and error of how to put this project up. I had to figure out how to bridge the silos that existed in our community between the renewable energy sector, climate organizations, government policymakers, project financiers, utility, labor, engineers, the list goes on. And I also realized then we do not have the climate literacy and energy literacy required to address the climate crisis across the board. And this needs to change. And that's why we are here today. So now, a decade later, in collaboration with Indigenous organizations, communities, and other partners, we've created something that I would have found hugely helpful in 2013, something that finally starts to define what a just transition really means. So the contents in here are summarized from my master's thesis, when I went to UVic, and also continue on through my research as a fellow at the David Suzuki Foundation, while also filming a 13-part docu-series called Power to the People with Real World Media, where we visited 26 locations from coast to coast that are already implementing transition technologies. So through the Just Transition Guide, we make tangible for people, communities, and the country of what a just transition actually looks like already on the ground. With over 2,000 Indigenous-led renewable energy projects already across this country, Indigenous peoples are without a doubt leading the climate just transition across the country. I don't know if you know this, but Indigenous communities outside of utilities are the largest asset owners of clean energy across this country. So we are already in the midst of the transition, and Indigenous nations and communities are leading it. I'm in awe of all the leaders that I met across the country that we profiled, and I'm incredibly grateful for the experiences and the relationships that I built along the way. So this, as Serena said, this guide was made possible through the partnership between Sacred Earth Solar, Indigenous Climate Action, in collaboration with Power to the People and David Suzuki Foundation. Of course, it's not without the inspiring work of all the communities involved, this guide would not exist. It is my hope that the Just Transition Guide will inspire and support the implementation of many more climate solutions across Turtle Island for many, many years to come. And we call on Canada and all provinces to implement the Just Transition Guide as a foundational supplemental resource to the Sustainable Jobs Act and the transition as a whole. Our organizations, alongside Indigenous communities, have done the work for them. It is now time for Canada to listen to Indigenous peoples, use this resource, and take responsibility in leading a truly just and equitable transition. Hi, thank you so much.
Nyago and Melina for your words. I'd like to go to our next speaker, Jayce Chiblow.
Miigwech, thank you, Serena. Anin bojo minande beneshi kwe Indigenous gitaganzi being donjaba yigo and dodem Anishinaabe kwe and Port Moody megwandinda. So hello everyone, my name is Jayce Chiblow. I'm Anishinaabe from Garden River First Nation, but I currently live and reside on unceded Coast Salish territories just outside of Vancouver. As I was preparing for today's press release, I kept thinking about what I could say that would do the Just Transition Guide justice in 5 simple minutes. I spent a lot of time reflecting and thinking on the last few months of working on this project with this amazing group of leaders. All I could think about is how this kind of work needs to be celebrated. So today, we're in celebration. Celebration of not only the release of this Just Transition Guide, but also the Indigenous communities, nations, and people that have made this guide possible. And thank you again for Chief Patrick Mitchell for being here and representing those communities that are leading the way. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. So also today we celebrate Indigenous leaders, Indigenous leadership, we celebrate Indigenous resistance, and we celebrate Indigenous knowledge. At Indigenous Climate Action, we envision a world with sovereign and thriving Indigenous peoples and cultures leading climate justice for all. Our mission is to inspire action through the development of tools and opportunities created with, by, and for our communities, with the ultimate goal of uplifting Indigenous voices, Indigenous sovereignty, and stewardships of the lands and waters for future generations. We are at a critical point in the climate crisis where Indigenous-led solutions need to be amplified, recognized, and appreciated for what they are. This guide contains many ways in which Indigenous people are already leading this work, and it also includes important critical considerations of the impacts of some of these current solutions being put forward. Thanks to Melina, Serena, the team at Sacred Earth Solar, Julia, Severn, and the team at David Suzuki Foundation, as well as Indigenous Climate Action, our team, Indigenous folks can look to this guide for inspiration on starting their own projects. Like Melina outlined, she had to really navigate this system all on her own and really completed a very helpful guide and really a step-by-step approach on how she included her community each step of the way to create a project that they are all proud of. At ICA, we believe in recognizing the diversity of Indigenous peoples as cultures and individuals. We believe in the idea that Indigenous identity is inseparable from the lands and waters from which we come from. We encourage you to take inspiration from this guide that offers community wisdom and reflections that are unique to each nation. We cannot continue to use a pan-Indigenous approach, and we need to recognize that each nation can and should have the right to do projects that make sense to them. Self-determination and sovereignty in Indigenous nations and communities is vital when working towards a just transition. We also value Indigenous ways of knowing. We believe in upholding Indigenous knowledge systems and respecting natural law. Communities and nations deserve the right to self-determine what will or won't work in their territories based on their knowledge and their teachings. We must employ a reciprocal and relational approach where we prioritize accountability to community. All of our work needs to uphold transparency, and we as leaders need to ensure that our work is accessible to Indigenous communities and grassroots community members. I've been very lucky to spend time with knowledge keepers in my home territory, and they always ask me, what are you doing to support our community? You know, like they don't really see that same tangible thing that I can so easily explain. So for me, I can't wait to show them this guide, this amazing group that we've worked with, and explain to them that all of us here are doing everything that we can to ensure Indigenous communities are honored, respected, and celebrated for all of the hard work that they have done for so many generations to keep our lands and territories well. They've also told me that as an Anishinaabe, we strive for Minnow-B'Madswin, living well with our earth, living well with all of our relations. I've been taught that I must leave this world better than I found it, that I must honor and respect the work of previous generations that have made today possible. So Chimiigwech, a big thank you to all of those that came before us. Chimiigwech to Melina for all of your hard work and bringing us all of these amazing people to collaborate and work on this together. I'm very grateful for all of your hard work and all of the mentorship that you've provided throughout. Chimiigwech, Julius, Severn, Ariel, the teams at Sacred Earth Solar, David Suzuki Foundation, and Indigenous Climate Action, and also all of the other unnamed folks that have been supporting and doing this work in their own territory. Chimiigwech, 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 Chimiigwech.
Yeah, go Jayce, Chimiigwech as well. I would like to go now with Severn Suzuki for your statement.
Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be on this panel. My name is Severn Suzuki, and I'm a settler on Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh land. My blood is from Japan and England. My parents are Tara Cullis and David Suzuki, the founders of the David Suzuki Foundation, and I'm so honored to lead this organization at this time. We, as a family, owe a deep gratitude for the education and generosity that we've received from First Nations across the nation, across the country of so-called Canada, and in fact, across the world, who took us in as family. I want to congratulate my dear friend and comrade Melina on this beautiful guide, this gift to us all. There's so much research, lived experience, and practical guidance for how to change our worlds in this guide. And that is it is rare to find these all in one place. And it's key right now because in these difficult times when prophecy and prediction are coming to pass, they're coming together in forms of climate crisis. It's critical to share the flame, the vision of what we're fighting for. This guide offers so much. There's 10 key highlighted lessons, but there are so many more gems. Just going through it, I'm just blown away by all of the teachings. This guide really understands and teaches the interdependence between resource extraction and neocolonialism. The drive of economic progress has led to the oppression of Indigenous peoples the world around, and Canada is a great example. And yet, And yet, despite this, as you can see here, Indigenous people are leading the way to facing climate change, adapting and transitioning off of fossil fuels. And as Melina said, in Canada, with 197 renewable energy projects, First Nations, Indigenous people in Canada are the largest owners of renewable energy after the Crown and private utility. Everyone's looking for the silver bullet to climate change. And there is no one solution. There's no one single cure. Solutions are local and diverse, but there are principles and approaches. And this Just Transition Guide offers something that is pretty darn close. This panel and this guide offer a response to fossil fuel supremacy. And it's becoming more and more clear to all of us as we experience inflation, as we experience the rise of costs of living. It's becoming more brazenly clear how the confluence of systems of colonialism, white supremacy, capitalism, and extractivism have set the table, laid it out for the current paradigm we're living in, which is a culture of fossil fuel supremacy. A culture where it is inviolate that fossil fuels are the infrastructure of energy and the systems and our jobs and the way it is. And in reality, this does not have to be. Narrative is key. This is another very, very important thing that the Just Transition Guide and all of these speakers today are disrupting, is a fossil fuel supremacy narrative that fossil fuels are the only way we can do this. Humans can live and have progress. It is just the way it is. And this is disrupting that narrative. This is replacing that narrative with something that offers us a viable future. And we have all the answers. They're right here. They're among us. Indigenous communities are leading the way. We just have to uplift these narratives, these possibilities, this vision, so that, as Miles Richardson of the Haida Nation said, of the Haida Nation's fight to save South Moresby many years ago, our story becomes bigger than theirs. And so I'm humbled today to represent the David Suzuki Foundation, to have played a small part in this work. And I just want to really uplift and celebrate the evidence that we can live in a better way. Thank you.
Now go with Severn. We really appreciate you speaking. Last but not least, we have former Chief Patrick Michelle.
Lo shuk shtuka cook stay bath cook p kana ya collective well, there's words I'm saying. Hi everybody, my name is Patrick from Lytton, and it's sure good to see you all, and thanks everybody. The Creator gave all of us the gift of life and choice, and I really appreciate those who are here online today with us, because it shows to me that something, the message is getting out there. My region has been using the land and resources to live for more than 10,000 years. Archaeology has confirmed that. The knowledge that I have within my heart and with my mind isn't from books. It's somewhat, I like to call it cellular. It's just something I know. And in the 80s, we started noticing the changes to what was going on. Everything we knew was changing, and we didn't have a solution. We didn't know what was going on. I mean, the Fraser Canyon is being mined, gone, boom and bust. Forestry, gone, boom and bust. Tourism, gone. What's left is, well, us, the Indigenous people, along with a few of the people who did not leave with the mining, the exploitation type industries. When the world scientists announced this thing called climate change in 1988, we didn't understand that. But when a youth spoke in 1992, we listened. We went all in when we realized that it was the effects. So whether, there's this argument that climate change is anthropogenic or climate change is natural. It doesn't matter. When I tell you that the world's earth, land, and water is warming up at an unprecedented rate, it's producing extreme weather events that is wreaking havoc on everything, our lives, our quality of lives, everything we need to live is inundated right now. It's just being slammed. Our mitigation strategies, the mitigation strategies of, reducing our just keep the fossil fuel in the ground. Alternatives exist to the fossil fuel industry. It's always been there. I don't know who the hell is telling you otherwise, but we have learned behavior. Intlakatma word for colonization is greed. What a statement. 10,000 years, we used the land to live. We used the land and we managed the land. We were stewards of land so that we had quality of life and life. But more importantly, we made sure that the land and resources were managed for future generations. Our great-grandchildren are the reason why we live today. That is not what was introduced when they declared the colony in 1858, or when we made this great country of ours, Canada, in 1867, which BC joined in 1871. But we know that the Indigenous voice is stifled. That's changed now. DRIP has now become law in Canada. DRIP has come now law in BC. I had the blessing to go to Fredericton and meet with 600 people who were there to share their stories and successes. And that's through the AFN, and AFN has released a video of that Fredericton conference, and I encourage all of you to find and watch that. There's some really good stuff in there. AFN has just released its national climate strategy, I think on October 18th. We know that BC is the leader in climate plans, but we're still doing a lot of talking. And I wrote a paper called Hope Flows from Action. You don't need to talk. What Severin said, and Severin also had an opportunity to meet with a young lady who also said, we know what to do, just do it. So what we're taking on is something called the adoption curve. People are scared, making a shift. I don't want to be first. So at Kanakabar, we said, fine. I don't know about the rest of the world, but we installed air quality monitors. We installed weather stations. We installed water gauging stations to generate site-specific data to plan our next 100 years on. We don't use Vancouver. We don't use Haida Gwaii. We don't use Ottawa. We certainly don't use England. What we use is site-specific data, and from there, we put in a water security system that gives us potable water. No, water is for ecosystems health, drinking, irrigation, fire protection, for energy production, and of course, making sure there's a potable water supply for the region. So we've guaranteed our region potable water for the next 100 years. We just forgot to get a grant from Victoria or Ottawa or tell them. At Kanakabar, we don't assert title and rights, we implement it. And when you find the stories of Kanakabar, and I think they might even be playing a video, next you're going to say that, okay, so he's got air quality, they're producing their own electricity, they're producing their own meats, fruits, and vegetables, they're building their own housing. Oh my gosh, what are they doing? We're planning for future generations. What are you guys doing? So there was my radar alarm saying that's my 5 minutes, but for those who not want more of me, trust me, I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll go with Chief Patrick. Michelle, you never fail to put a smile on our faces. I would just like to say Niago and thank you to our speakers for sharing those words. A lot of work and love and care went into coming today, went into the guide, and it's quite evident from all of you. As mentioned though from Melina, our guide would not exist without the communities featured throughout it. To amplify those communities we have worked with for the guide, we would like to share some of their stories with you through videos. But before we do that, I just want to reiterate to the journalists in the press here that we would like you to please send any questions in the chat, and we will be opening space after videos for Q&A. So please send your questions in the chat. For our first video, we are going to actually feature Melina's project of her 20.8 kilowatt system that powers Little Buffalo's Health Center, the project being called Pitapin. Yes, we'll start with that.
The Laboucan Cree have been here since time immemorial. Indigenous peoples have a very intimate connection with our homelands here in northern Alberta. And what we've seen instead is industry coming and essentially taking over our lands and really exploiting them, and it's had a detrimental impact. We see companies digging down into the earth, trying to extract the very last drop of oil. But instead, we can start looking up. We're bathing in sunlight all around us, and yet we don't utilize that energy. And so that's why our community has decided to install solar. pretty amazing to see this project go up. A lot of the community members and the young people are working, they're getting hands-on training right now. It's really amazing to see how proud people are of it and how it's a community project, because all of this has been through the blood, sweat, and tears of the community.
Well, this project matters to us because it kind of represents who we are and where we're going in the future. When you see the work, I can say that I did that. I took part and I did it right. So there'll be a lot of people seeing it every day. I can tell people I worked on this.
I know in a lot of the ceremonies and the songs, the sun is praised. Even the project name, Bita Pan, means the coming of the dawn, and it's coming of a new era, era where we use, energy that's not devastating to our environment. In getting this solar project going, we are leaders in solar power, and that's what we're teaching our youth. They have to learn how to operate it, they have to learn how to maintain it, and they already know how to set it up. So if any of our neighbors in the surrounding First Nations or Métis settlements want to start a solar power, we can be there to help them get it going.
Thank you for sharing. Our next video will actually be highlighting Kanakabar, Patrick Michelle, former Chief Patrick Michelle's community, to highlight their renewable energy and food security initiatives.
Bees is one of our first things that we had going.
Do you always wear these?
No, actually, these bees are really friendly.
Amazing.
Right now, they're filling it up with honey and making sure they're getting ready for the winter time.
So how many chickens do you have in here?
We have 50, I believe. We started out with 6 and realized, this is working. We can keep on growing and become a larger scale.
So you have a student youth program. Can you tell me more about it and how many students that are currently in it?
There's six students here.
That's so great.
So coming around the chickens here, hello ladies. We walk into our food forest.
Wow.
So Melina, everything in our garden has a purpose, whether that's food or medicinal. These here are linden trees, and they're actually one of the few trees that we can eat the leaves.
It's beautiful up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is echinacea. There's lots and lots of stuff. A large variety of plants. I'm gonna say over 90 plants.
You can really see the diversity here.
The overall plan is that this food is a food forest and not necessarily a garden, so we don't have to have a lot of membership coming in, weeding, fertilizing. The general plan for this is to see, what we can grow here and what's suitable to, grow on a larger scale. And one of the main things are these strawberries that are going to remain growing here. Coming over here, you can see these guys working hard. It's our first adventure into creating a greenhouse. What we're creating here is called a solar thermal greenhouse. It's important that we use the solar thermal greenhouse because the extremities of the weather changes. So in the wintertime, it can get up to like -30, while in the summertime, it can get beyond like 45 degrees Celsius.
This is amazing. All in like one little plot of land. I'm so inspired by just the diversity of what you have here. Not even to mention, we have solar in the background here we haven't even talked about, so I'd love to hear more about that when we get a chance.
Yeah, I'll tell you all about it later. There's so much going on here.
I love the intersection between food and energy within these videos. Our next video will highlight utility scale wind farm collaboration in Gas Bay with 3 Mi'kmaq communities in Atlantic Canada. And you'll actually get the opportunity on Wednesday's community launch event to hear from Troy Jerome, a leader within the project.
It's so big. So how long have you both worked here for?
About 2.5
Great.
years.
And what did you do before for work?
I worked in on diesel mechanics, motors and stuff like that before, but then I went into the electrical field.
So you basically transitioned from a non-renewable energy field to a renewable energy field.
Yes.
That's so cool. And you came from?
I used to work in forestry. I did about 5 years in forestry. And I took an electrical course. Let us show you inside.
Okay, perfect. How tall is it?
It's a 100-meter tower, 330 feet to the nacelle.
Right now we're going to be working on this cabinet.
Oh.
We're actually going to be replacing a Laboucan module, which is essentially the brain of the turbine, so we can get communication with the turbine.
So brain surgery, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why we replaced this module is because there was no communication from the computer to the turbine, so that's how we knew it was something to do with the module.
So you're like wind doctors, essentially. So you have to make a prognosis and then fix it.
My favorite thing about being up here is the view. If you take a look around, like, it's amazing. Like, you can see so far. We're 100 meters in the air right now. We always learn new things every day.
What you do every day, it's pretty amazing to see the capacity or high level of skills that you're bringing to your nation. You must be pretty proud.
Thank you. Our last video will be actually highlighting my own community of 6 nations of the Grand River. We have the largest First Nations clean energy portfolio in the country with over 1,000 megawatts of clean energy power. And this is just one of the projects that we are doing within the transition.
This is right beside a decommissioned coal energy power plant, and now we're seeing solar being erected in its place. How do you feel about that? What's the story behind that?
Ontario Power Generation decommissioned Nanacoke Generating Station in 2013, and now Nanacoke Solar is actually taking place on the former coal yard of the Nanacoke Generating Station, and they're really
an equitable transitioning,
hey?
The lessons of the guide highlights
even
the
though we
notable
see a refinery in the background still pumping oil, I think we see this is like really the energy transition that we're all really hoping for, and I think it's pretty inspiring that 6 Nations is a part of it.
I would just like to say thank you for the videos, and it completely grounds exactly why we're here today, is for the empowerment of our communities and the solutions being put forth for our people, for the betterment of our people, the health of the lands, ourselves, and all human and non-human kin. Now I would like to open up the space for Q&A, and you will have a chance to ask from our 4 speakers, as well as Julius Lindsay from David Suzuki Foundation. And so please use the Q&A function within the webinar currently, and please ask questions away. We do have one question to start. I will read that off. From Chloe Logan. Hi there, my name is Chloe Logan. I'm a reporter with Canada's National Observer. I'm wondering if someone could expand on or give examples on the current gaps and how the federal government is approaching a just transition, and perhaps how the guide shows pathways to address those gaps. Thank you for your time. Who would like to take on this question first?
I can attempt it at first, and then if anyone else wants to join on, I know Julius is here too, but so it's hard to summarize a close to 200-page document. So I definitely recommend and encourage everybody that's on this call, watching in the live stream right now, and also the journalists and media and policymakers on the call, to read the full 180-page document that we put together, but also there is an executive summary that's live currently on the Sacred Earth Solar website. So you can go to download the full document, and you can download the executive summary as well. But what I also wanted to say specifically about this, so when the Canadian federal government first started talking about legislation to support a just transition, I admit I was like hopeful. And not only did they change the name of the just transition, they changed it to a sustainable jobs plan in February 2023. But it also became very clear, well, after reading the legislation that's been tabled, you can read it online. It's up online on the Canadian government's website of what they've tabled so far, and it's quite short. And it became clear that this legislation was still plagued by the features typical of a business-focused colonial government. It has it focuses on the who and not the how. So it focuses on the Secretariat, a council, and it delineates a simple timeline by 2025 to have something planned, hopefully, and then 5 years and then 5 years. So it's literally a plan to have a plan right now. So that means that we're not really looking at what's actually already happening in the country. Where are the case studies that, you know, the government needs to learn from? There's literally, like I said at the beginning of the call, over 2,000 Indigenous-led renewable energy projects across this country. And like Severin said, there's 197 plus more in the works of revenue generating large scale, like the projects that we just showed with Six Nations and the Mi'kmaq communities, the amazing community that happened, the project that happened in Gaspésie, which is 47 huge wind turbines. This is happening. And yet all we see in its current form of the act is a missed opportunity. It's a top-down exclusionary approach. So how will the plan work with communities that we don't know? And also largely, how will they work with Indigenous nations, who are the stewards of the vast majority of Canada, like of our traditional territories? Who are they going to be working with in the just transition? Again, like I said, outside of utilities, Indigenous nations are the largest renewable energy asset owners in the country. So in our response, the Just Transition Guide is the how. How are people and communities working to start this transition without leaving anybody behind? This guide is about making communities resilient now in the climate crisis, just like Chief Patrick mentioned. And he's going to speak next. I see his hand up, that this, like a community like Kanaka Bar is phenomenal. They've been doing this for 20 years and putting up so many different projects that he could talk about that we didn't even have time to show. Watch the Kanaka Bar Power to the People film. It shows all the different types of projects that they have up, but we're so happy that Chief Patrick could join us today. But one of the last thing that I'll say is Bill C-50 continue to sidestep and not name and address the root causes of the climate crisis, which is they don't name fossil fuels. They don't talk about renewable energy through a diversity of technologies, implementing energy efficiency, embracing conservation, ensuring policy is inclusive of both workers and communities, and also centering Indigenous leadership and sovereignty. So that's my initial comments for now, and I'll pass it over to Chief Patrick and then Julius.
Oh my goodness, never been one known to keep my mouth shut. That's why I'm not on Facebook, and the rest of you, good luck with all the crap that you get on that. I am trolled because I have a few videos on YouTube though, and if you like reading those comments, it's pretty funny. And one of the videos that I posted is why Kanaka Bar said no to TMX. We're facing a global existential crisis. Canada decides to triple our fossil fuel export to the market, and they said we're not responsible for downstream emissions. We put $31 billion into bloody TMX, and we put $10 billion into our national adaptation strategy. Now that's a gap, or that's a miss. That's something. That's something. Just transition. Now I realize everybody was going, oh my God, what's a just transition? You know what? At the end of the day, you've got a bunch of antiquated jobs that are coming to a conclusion. We need to start investing in them now. We don't have solar panel manufacturing in BC. We don't have new building envelope solutions being manufactured in BC. Our country is still relying on the import of the things we need to live for the next 100 years. Start creating the jobs for British Columbians and Canadians. Quit relying on the world to save our bacon. The person who's responsible for saving the bacon is the people that raise the bacon. Okay, that's just a really weird analogy. Okay, let's get off of that one. The gap here is the Indigenous people are leading the way by going back to the ways they lived before contact, living in harmony with the land and resources. Colonization introduced a parasitic way of living that for the longest time was suppressed, and the Indigenous people are leading the way and bringing back this symbiotic relationship, living with Mother Nature, grandfathers, all those sort of things. Everything is a living being. And when we look at that, we need to sit down here, and we have to have courage. It takes leadership. It takes perseverance. Sometimes you have to say no to pipelines. Sometimes you have to say no to nuclear. Sometimes just say no, because there is an alternative. but we're not investing in those alternatives. And by the time we really throw the weight behind it, it may be too late and people will unnecessarily suffer. So that has always been my biggest concern. If we know what to do, why aren't we doing it? And I just encourage each person I meet to talk to their MLA, to talk to their MP. Let them know that we care about our future, and it's what we do today that determines our future. And as I said for Sarika when I met her, our children and grandchildren are worth it.
Yeah, I would just add that sort of lifting up what Melina said about working with community and connecting to community. There are some specific sort of recommendations and challenges that are highlighted in the Just Transition Guide around communities taking these types of actions. The challenges of the way our current electricity system runs and how that might be a barrier or an impediment to taking these types of actions, and also how Indigenous communities, Indigenous folks, and others can work with community to get these projects off the ground. And so there are sort of specifics around what it will actually take to undertake these actions and what that actually looks like in various provinces and various places across the country. So that's what I wanted to add.
I feel like the folks that have spoke before me, Chief Patrick, Julius, and Melina did a great job focusing on the renewable energy piece of the just transition. And I'm really grateful for this question because I feel like this kind of leads to what I wanted to bring up, which was, I think the current gap in how the federal government is approaching a just transition is where we go into beyond technological solutions. So in the guide, we highlight how things like food security and food sovereignty are also important in a just transition. You can take a look at it, the Indigenous principles of just transition from the Indigenous Environmental Network, where they focus on responsibility and relationship, sovereignty, and transformation for action. I truly believe that those young people and those people out on the land reclaiming their culture, living out their responsibilities, have the knowledge that we need to make a just transition. They're going to know where all of the animals and plants are. They're going to know the proper locations for where a project can go in that's safe for the community. They're going to have all of that knowledge. So I think one thing that's super missing in a lot of these discussions is how important and vital the beyond technological solutions section is. And those folks doing that work is just as important and really help outline how we can do these projects in a good way. So I just wanted to allude to that and highlight that because I feel like those doing the on the ground work is just as important and needs to be recognized as well.
Thank you so much to all. Oh, Severin, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just listening to everybody, I just really realized that this just transition guide and the work that all of these participants are active in is the direct answer to the gap of the federal government. I mean, this is the response. This is the filling that colossal gap. And for the rest of us on this call, supporters, journalists, policy people, we need to ensure that there's policies and funding that support communities and workers and this kind of work so that we can ensure that this kind of transition is equitable and just and invested in. As Patrick Michel says, you know, the alternatives, the solutions are there. They're just not being invested in. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers. It's beautiful, eloquent words, and I hope that answered your question, Clodagh. There are many gaps in the just transition of the federal government's plan. We have one last question that I'm going to pass over to Melina from Hazel to please describe opportunities for both regional and national training opportunities for First Nations renewable energy initiatives.
So this is in section 7 of our guide on, let's see, page 148. So I encourage you to go look. We have listed training programs like the Indigenous Clean Energy 2020 Catalyst, Indigenous Clean Energy Project Accelerator Program, also Imagination and Indigenous Youth Development Program. So there is training opportunities. I sit on the National Advisory of the Indigenous Clean Energy social enterprise and really support the on the ground tangible training initiatives they have. Also follow us online with, you'll see projects that we're putting up at Sacred Earth Solar. Serena just actually led her first solar project on the ground in her community, and we're building more as we continue. So there is training opportunities. I don't know if people want to add more, but we also have within the guide a list of regional across the country like funding opportunities for each region. So it's an Excel file for each region, each province, each territory of the funding opportunities that communities can access to start building projects. Because really, ultimately, we want for this guide is to start building, start doing the implementation. We have enough talk of a just transition, but we need to see the just transition on the ground through implementation. And that's why organizations like Sacred Earth exist to do the implementation on the ground, and all the Indigenous communities that are profiled, like Chief Patrick, that literally I was just in awe of the community, visiting his community, and wanted to uplift his leadership here of leading run of the river, multiple solar projects, food security, climate solutions, and also just the research that you've been doing. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. You are such an incredible leader for your nation and also for all of us who follow in your footsteps. I just wanted to say hi to everybody, also all of the other contributors and the authors. Please, I just want to say thank you I just want to say thank you so much for working with us and helping us to get this guide to completion. It was a heavy lift of multi-year research project. So please download it. It's now available on the Sacred Earth Solar website, and I'll turn it back over to you, Serena, for the closing words. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Jayce, Severin, Julius, and Serena for hosting us today, and everyone that worked with us to get this out. It was a heavy lift, and we're happy and celebrating, like you said, Jayce, it's celebrating, it's out in the world. So I couldn't be happier. Hey, hi, thank you.
Thank you for those words. And I just want to echo, I wouldn't be in the space I am today without the training opportunities available for First Nations in clean energy. I've been able to access multiple, and now I'm working on my second project. So this is what happens when we have the education and training accessible to us. To close us off, I just want to say thank you for your questions. Thank you for your answers. Thank you to Melina and your fearless leadership. Thank you to Jayce and Indigenous Climate Action for your support, to the David Suzuki Foundation, Severin, Julius, and all of your help going forward with this launch, as well as to Chief Patrick and bringing that community perspective to keep us grounded in what this all means. I just want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you as well to all the other communities who are part of the Just Transition Guide, and to the land defenders and water protectors on the front lines who are also protecting the environments that we come from. So with that being said, I just want to say, yes, thank you for sharing around the vitality of the Just Transition Guide and the transition as a whole to a healthier future. Our Just Transition Guide is a critical resource for everyone and centers the urgency needed towards creating community-led solutions in the era of environmental degradation as well as the climate crisis, while also providing stories of hope, resiliency, and love for each other and the land. It is well established that Indigenous nations have been systemically excluded from the prevailing narratives of this country, from everything to our collective economies to a livable, just future. To not replicate the same inequities of the fossil fuel industry, Indigenous-led climate solutions must be achieved in tandem. Through the Just Transition Guide, we believe it is our responsibility to uplift the work already being led by Indigenous nations across Turtle Island who are prioritizing a healthier future for the next generations, so that others can learn from them and take necessary action. It is our pleasure to welcome you to this essential resource that we have worked on diligently to create. We hope you find something that will inspire you from our guide and the stories of the many communities who brought it to life. We all play a role in the just transition, and our guide is a great starting point for communities as well as greater society to see where they may fit into this transition. I want to say Nyaogo to all those who attended today. The guide is now available on our website at sacredearth.solar. And for any communities watching, we will be holding a community launch event on Wednesday, November 8th at 12:30 p.m. PST, 3:30 p.m. EST. And to register, find us on social media at Sacred Earth Solar or Indigenous Climate Action. You can register for the Zoom link there. I want to say Nyaogoa, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for attending. See you soon. More to come.